They paid me too much to ask questions. The smell of stale coffee and gasoline hung thick in the air of the 76 station just off Highway 126, east of Eugene. Rain lashed against the grimy windows, blurring the gray Oregon afternoon into a watercolor smear of pine trees and despair. 3 months. 3 months since the security contracting firm folded, taking my last paycheck and any semblance of stability with it. The savings were dust. My landlord's patience was thinner than the worn soles of my boots. That's why I was here, hunched over a lukewarm cup of bad coffee, flipping through the damp pages of the local classifieds, the ink smudging under my thumb. Most were dead ends. Farmhand work paying peanuts, part-time gigs at the lumber mill that wouldn't cover rent. Then I saw it. Logistics coordinator, remote site management, immediate start. The title was bland, bureaucratic. The details were anything but. Salary, $12,500 a month, private lodging, full medical, dental, vision, all meals provided. Performance bonus, $25,000 upon successful completion of 90-day probationary period. I read it twice, 3 times. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the quiet hum of the cooler units. 12 grand a month, plus a bonus, for logistics. It screamed trap. But the eviction notice burning a hole in my pocket screamed louder. The company name was sterile, forgettable. Viridian Holdings. The contact was a P.O. box. The ad mentioned a revolutionary biotech venture, requiring discreet and reliable professionals capable of handling sensitive operations in a secure, remote environment. It reeked of something illicit, but the specifics were vague enough to leave plausible deniability. Desperation is a powerful narcotic. It dulls the alarm bells. I copied down the P.O. box. My hand shook only a little. The response came faster than I expected. An email, brief and professional, instructing me to be at a specific mile marker on a logging road branching off Highway 58 near Oak Ridge. The following Tuesday at 0800. No interview, just be there. The absurdity ward with the gnawing void in my bank account. On Tuesday, under a sky the color of wet cement, I parked my battered Tacoma at the designated spot, a muddy pull-off surrounded by towering Douglas firs. 10 minutes later, a matte black SUV with tinted windows slid silently out of the forest gloom. No markings. The driver, a man built like a brick wall with a close-cropped haircut and eyes that missed nothing, barely grunted a greeting. Scan my ID. Take my phone. Put this blindfold on. His tone brooked no argument. The military bearing was unmistakable. Maybe they weren't entirely full of shit. Or maybe that was the point. The drive felt endless, twisting and turning on rough roads, the SUV lurching over unseen ruts. When the blindfold finally came off, blinking in the sudden grey light, the sight was jarring. We were inside a high perimeter fence topped with razor wire, easily 15 feet tall. Camera domes dotted the corners. Beyond it, nestled in a cleared valley surrounded by dense mist-shrouded forest, stood a cluster of sleek, modern buildings, low-slung glass and steel reflecting the damp sky. It looked like a tech company's off-site retreat, not some backwoods biotech startup. Armed security patrolled the perimeter, their movements efficient, professional. The brick wall driver, who introduced himself tersely as Vance, led me to the main reception building. Inside, it was all polished concrete floors, minimalist furniture, and the faint scent of antiseptic underlying expensive coffee. The hospitality was immediate, overwhelming, and deeply unsettling. A woman named Claire, crisp, in a white lab coat over smart business attire, greeted me with unnerving warmth. "Welcome to Viridian, Mr. Keller. We're thrilled you're here." She processed paperwork with smooth efficiency. Blood draw, basic biometrics, height, weight, retinal scan, fingerprints, standard onboarding. She assured me with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Vance showed me to my quarters, a private studio apartment in one of the residential wings. It was nicer than any place I'd ever rented. King bed, sleek bathroom, a small kitchenette, a flat-screen TV. The common areas boasted a gleaming gym, a pool shimmering under skylights, a game room with a massive TV and consoles, even a small cinema. Lunch in the communal dining hall was gourmet, seared salmon, roasted vegetables, artisan bread. Other new hires were there, maybe a dozen of us, all fit, healthy-looking men and women in their prime. Ex-military types like me, a couple of folks who looked like they could be engineers or scientists, a few with the solid build of construction or manual labor. We exchanged wary pleasantries. Everyone shared the same story, lured by the insane pay and benefits, processed quickly, and now, waiting. That was the first red flag. The waiting. Claire or other staff members, in similar crisp attire, medical personnel, admin, more security, were always present, always polite, always urging us to relax, enjoy the amenities. The company is finalizing crucial internal phases, they explained. Your specific roles are being tailored. Just be patient. Make yourselves comfortable. It's all part of the onboarding process. So we lifted weights, we swam laps, we played pool, we watched movies. The luxury felt increasingly like a gilded cage. The second flag was the disappearances. Carl, a quiet ex-Marine I'd shared a coffee with, wasn't at breakfast one morning. His room was empty, meticulously clean. Oh, Carl. He was reassigned to a different project team overnight. Very hush-hush. You'll get your assignments soon. Then it was Anya, the sharp-eyed woman who looked like she could handle herself. Transferred, no notice, no goodbye, just gone. The explanations varied slightly depending on who you asked. Vance would grunt something about operational needs. Claire would offer a vague smile and mention specialized training modules. The unease curdled into something colder, sharper. The third flag was the medical attention. It was constant. Weekly blood draws became bi-weekly. Then, seemingly random spot checks. Vance or another guard would appear at your door. Time for a quick physical, just routine monitoring, ensuring you're adapting well to the environment. They'd take more blood, run more scans, ask probing questions about family medical history, allergies, past injuries. The questions felt invasive, far beyond occupational health. And the locked sections, whole wings of the complex, required keycard access beyond our basic clearance. Heavy doors with electronic locks. I tried casually following a janitor once, feigning interest in the building layout. He froze, his eyes darting to a camera overhead. Vance appeared moments later, his expression flat. Restricted areas, Keller. Authorized personnel only. Don't wander. The implied threat was clear. The luxurious prison walls were closing in. Paranoia became my constant companion. Sleep was fractured by imagined sounds. Every smile from Claire felt predatory. Every glance from Vance felt assessing, like he was sizing up livestock. The other remaining hires grew quiet, withdrawn. We stopped congregating. We moved through the amenities like ghosts, the forced relaxation now a grotesque pantomime. I knew I was being watched, evaluated, but for what? My military training kicked in. Observation, pattern recognition, exploiting routine. I noted guard shift changes, memorized camera blind spots, fleeting moments when corridors were empty. The service corridors behind the kitchens and laundry offered the least surveillance. One rain-lashed night, the drumming on the roof a perfect cover, I slipped out. My target was the low, windowless building tucked behind the main medical wing. Building C, its access required a keycard none of us had ever seen. I waited near a service entrance used for waste disposal, shrouded in the deep shadow of a dripping overhang. My heart was a jackhammer against my ribs. The cold seeped through my jacket. Finally, a figure approached, swiping a card. As the door hissed open, revealing a brightly lit corridor, smelling strongly of bleach and something else, coppery, organic. I moved. Not fast, just decisive, slipping through the closing door before it sealed. The corridor was empty. Sterile white tiles, harsh fluorescent lights. Doors led off it, labeled cryptically. Processing 1, cold storage. Diagnostics 2. One door stood slightly ajar, lights spilling out. A small office, empty. A computer monitor glowed on the desk. Adrenaline surging, I darted inside. The screen showed an open database. Medical records. But not just names and dates. Columns filled with codes I didn't fully understand. But the headers were chilling. Organ viability index. Tissue compatibility match. Harvest window projection. I scrolled, my blood turning to ice. Names I recognized. Carl, Anya. My own name jumped out at me. Keller, Marcus. Blood type, O neg. CMV status, neg. HLA typing, A2B, 27. Compatibility matrix. High multiple organs. Notes. Prime candidate. Optimal physical parameters. Schedule for Phase 3 assessment. Below my name, a chilling notation. Bonus retention probability. Low, high, initiative observed. Recommend accelerated harvest timeline. The screen flickered. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Panic seized me. Frantic, I jammed a small USB drive I'd palmed weeks ago from an unattended admin office into the port. The progress bar crawled with agonizing slowness. The footsteps grew closer. I yanked the drive out just as the door handle rattled. No time. I grabbed a printed sheet from a tray beside the printer. A requisition form listing serial numbers and chillingly generic labels. Biocontainer X6, cryopreservation solution. Priority transport, cold chain. I stuffed it into my jacket as the door swung open. Vance stood there, his face a mask of cold fury. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His hand went to the holster at his hip. Run. The command screamed in my head, overriding the paralyzing terror. I launched myself past him, shoulder-checking him hard into the doorframe. He grunted, caught off guard. I sprinted down the sterile corridor, away from the main complex, towards a red emergency exit sign glowing at the far end. Alarms began to blare, a deafening electronic shriek that ripped through the silence. The exit door was heavy, marked fire exit only. Alarm will sound. I didn't hesitate. I slammed the panic bar. The alarm added its own scream to the cacophony. Rain and freezing wind hit me like a physical blow. I was out, behind the building. Fenced perimeter. Razor wire. No time. I ran along the fence line, away from the main gate, towards the darkest part of the forest. Shouts erupted behind me. Flashlight beams cut through the rain. The fence was high, but I'd scoped it weeks ago during a restless walk. A section near the tree line dipped slightly where the ground was softer. I scrambled, fingers clawing at the wet chain link, boots slipping in the mud. A shot cracked, whining off the metal near my head. I hauled myself over, the razor wire tearing through my jeans and into my thigh. Pain flared, hot and sharp. I dropped, rolled, and plunged into the black maw of the Oregon wilderness. The forest swallowed me. Rain turned the ground into a treacherous slurry of mud, moss, and decaying needles. Every branch seemed to reach out and claw at me. My thigh burned, blood soaking through the denim, warm against the icy rain. I ran blindly, driven by pure animal terror. The shouts and flashlight beams, thankfully fading behind me, swallowed by the density of the trees and the roar of the storm. I ran until my lungs were fire and my legs were lead. I collapsed against the massive trunk of a fallen cedar, gasping, listening. Nothing but the drumming rain, the sighing wind in the pines, and the frantic pounding of my own heart. I was soaked, freezing, bleeding, and utterly lost. But I was out. I had the drive. I had the paper. Proof I had to believe it was proof. It took 2 days. 2 days of stumbling through freezing rain, wading through icy streams that numbed my feet, hiding at the slightest sound, chewing on bitter bark and wild greens when the gnawing hunger became too much. My leg wound throbbed, inflamed. Infection was setting in. I followed water downhill, praying it would lead to a road. On the second evening, delirious with cold and pain, I stumbled onto a gravel track. An hour later, headlights speared through the gloom. An old pickup truck stopped. The farmer inside took one look at me, wild-eyed, bleeding, covered in mud, and didn't ask questions. He drove me straight to the small sheriff's office in Westfir. They thought I was crazy, a meth head, a lunatic who'd gotten lost in the woods and concocted a wild story. The deputy behind the desk, a weary man with a thick mustache, listened with skeptical patience as I rasped out the tale. The job, the luxury, the disappearances, the medical records, the organ charts, the chase. My voice cracked. I was shivering uncontrollably despite the blanket they'd given me. The USB drive, waterlogged, wouldn't read on their ancient computer. The requisition form was just a list of numbers and vague terms, soaked and smeared. "See, son," the deputy sighed, rubbing his temples. "You've been through an ordeal, lost in the woods, hurt. It's easy for the mind to play tricks. We get calls about Bigfoot out here too, but something in my eyes, maybe the raw terror still etched there, or the specific details about the facility location, made him hesitate. Or maybe it was the desperation that mirrored my own when I'd first seen that ad." He exchanged a look with an older sergeant who'd wandered over. "Tell you what," the sergeant said, his voice gravelly. "We'll take a ride out there tomorrow morning. Show us where you think this place is. Can't promise anything, but we'll look." It was more than I expected. We went back the next day. My truck was still at the pull-off, a lonely sentinel in the rain. The sergeant drove his SUV, the skeptical deputy riding shotgun, me in the back, navigating through a haze of pain and fever. "Turn here, about another mile. It should be right up." The words died in my throat. The high fence was gone. The sleek modern buildings were gone. Where Viridian Holdings had stood was a scene of utter desolation. Acres of blackened, rain-sodden earth. Twisted, skeletal remains of metal beams poking out of the ash like broken bones. The acrid stench of wet charcoal and something else, something harsh and chemical, burned my nostrils even through the closed car window. The deputies got out, pulling their collars up against the rain. I stumbled out after them, my injured leg buckling. We picked our way through the ruins, Nothing, no bodies, no equipment, just scorched earth and the overwhelming smell. Over there, I pointed towards where Building C had been. We found the concrete slab, cracked and blackened. Stains that could have been oil or something darker, dried into the porous surface, discarded for bags, trampled into the mud. The heavy, chemical smell was strongest near a large, scorched metal structure half buried in debris. The crematorium, I realized with a fresh wave of nausea, but empty, cold. Just the lingering ghosts of fire and something unspeakable. See, the skeptical deputy muttered, kicking at a charred piece of conduit. Burned out meth lab, probably. Tore it down themselves. Happens. The sergeant was quieter, poking at the stained concrete with his boot, sniffing the air, his expression grim. He looked at me, then back at the desolation. "Nothing here, son," he said finally, his voice heavy. "Nothing we can act on. You need a hospital. That leg looks bad." They drove me to the ER in Eugene. I gave a statement. A bored detective took notes, his expression radiating disbelief. The USB drive was sent to some lab. I never heard back. The requisition form vanished. My story made the local news briefly. Mysterious disappearance of remote property, framed as a possible illegal drug operation. Fire, no mention of missing people, no mention of organ harvesting, just another weird, backwoods Oregon story. They closed the case. Insufficient evidence. I got patched up. The hospital bill cleaned out the paltry advance Viridian had deposited into a temporary account they'd set up. I used the last of my cash for a bus ticket south, as far south as I could get. Changed my name. Got a cheap prepaid phone. Work cash jobs under the table. I sleep with a knife under my pillow and a chair wedged under the doorknob. Every unfamiliar car that slows down near my rundown apartment feels like a surveillance detail. Every unexpected knock sends ice water through my veins. The rain still triggers the memory of running through those black woods, the taste of terror sharp on my tongue. They're out there, Viridian, or whatever name they use now. They burned the evidence, but they didn't burn the knowledge. They know I saw. They know I know. That bonus retention probability note haunts me. Low, high initiative observed. They weren't wrong. My initiative got me out, but it also marked me. The luxury, the blood tests, the disappearance. It wasn't just a job. It was a selection process, a farm. And I was prime stock that broke out of the slaughterhouse pen. The job sounded too good to be true. It was, believe me, it was. And the cost. I escaped with my life. But they took something else. Peace, security, the belief that the world operates on rules you can understand. Some nights, when the rain drums on the roof of this anonymous room in this anonymous town, I close my eyes and smell the bleach and copper of Building C. I see the words on that screen, harvest window projection, and I know, deep in the marrow of my bones, where the cold fear lives, that my window isn't closed. It's just temporarily delayed. They're patient. They're thorough, and they always balance the books. They think they erased everything, that the fire covered their tracks. But I logged every detail, every pattern, every face. They underestimated their target. I'm regrouping. I'm recovering. But I'm not standing down. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. I'll find them, and when I do, they'll learn what it means to be hunted. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more real horror and dark mysteries every week. And if you have a terrifying true story of your own, something you've never told anyone, send it to the email in the description. Your story might be the next one we bring to life here. Sleep tight.